Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing? Well, I am on my way home. I just dropped off Tanya Jean and my sponsor, or I should say our sponsor. We now have the same sponsor. We're sponsor sisters, Tanya and I. Or sponsor brother and sister. We went to our home group meeting tonight, which is not my sponsor's home group meeting, but it is so nice outside. It is 83 degrees. And it is beautiful. I just talked to my husband, and his friend Sarah is about to stop by, and I'll probably hang out with them for a little bit, do some bills, and then listen to my audiobook when he goes to bed. And so I wanted to get a little bit of my vlog done a little bit early. It's 9:54 p.m. So I'm gonna vlog a little bit now, and then this is not gonna be a long vlog tonight. I know I always say that, but it's not gonna be a long vlog tonight, just because I wanna listen to my audiobook and I wanna relax and have fun. It's been a good day. I've had a really, really good day. Got up and took Pee-Pee to the vet, and we had a fantastic vet appointment. Pee-Pee gained a half a pound, and she was happy about that. And she said he's not retaining any fluid, which is really good, which means the medicine is working. She said she's not super concerned about his cough, and he actually coughed while we were there. And she was like, is that as bad as it is? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, you made it sound like it was a lot worse. And I go, well, it scares me because it's his cough, you know? And she goes, oh, Peter, she goes, like, that's nothing, she goes, compared to what I've heard. She goes, he's doing great. And she goes, I tell people all the time about how I told you, you know, the first time that it was going to be a year and a half, and you started crying and said, you know, if you told me it was going to be 45, she said 25. I said, no, I actually said 45. But that it's something like, if you had told me he'd make it to 45, I'd be bawling my eyes out, because even I wouldn't be ready then, you know. And then last time I was in there, she said that he was only going to make it 6 months. And I said, see, I said, he's like the miracle dog. And she goes, I hope so. She's like, you know, I hope he lives a good, long life. And she was like, we really just want to get the cough. You know, I would like the cough to be gone. So she kept the vet medin, and she kept the anaparil the same. And she increased his Lasix by a half a pill in the morning. So he now is taking the Lasix a pill and a half in the morning and a pill in the evening, which is, he was taking a pill in the morning and a pill in the evening. And she said, we'll keep on increasing it over the period of, you know, however long that we need to, until the cough is gone. And she said that we can increase it to about 2 pills in the morning, 2 pills in the evening, and past that point, you can't really do a whole lot more. So she said, you know, we're really, like, at a good place, and he's doing really, he was running around on the floor and stuff like that. She's like, is he like this all the time? I said, yeah. She goes, she felt his belly and his chest, and she's like, he's not retaining any fluid. And I was telling her, like, you know, that he'll drink some water and then he'll, like, pee immediately. But I said, sometimes, like, I'll find it, like, on the kitchen floor, and the urine is, like, really clear. It looks almost like water. And she goes, that's actually a really good sign. That means, like, the Lasix is working. And she goes, it's like he's releasing the fluid. And she goes, that's what it is. And she's like, that's what we want to happen. We don't want him to retain any fluid whatsoever. And so she was really happy. She took blood work. She said, you know, we haven't done blood work since he initially came in here. I'd like to take some blood work. So they took blood work today. And she said, just to see, make sure that there's nothing else going on, and rule out, you know, any other problems that he might be getting as he gets older, because, you know, he's 13 now. And so yeah, it was a really good appointment. I was so happy, because I was kind of apprehensive about going. And so Alex and I were both really happy to hear that. And she was, like, really surprised. She's like, he's doing really well. I said, you know, I think part of it is that he's got, you know, his 2 brothers, and they're constantly running around and out in the yard and, you know, stuff like that. And she's like, does he sleep a lot? I go, he always sleeps a lot, but no more than, you know. I said to her, I said, how will we know, like, when things are going bad? And she said, you know, Peter, that's one of the things with heart disease. And she goes, it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to tell over a 2 to 3 month period. She goes, it'll kind of just happen overnight. And she goes, I really hate to tell you that. She was like, but it'll probably happen within the matter of a couple days, where, you know, like, he's doing really well, and then all of a sudden he's not. She goes, but the cough is kind of a good indicator of knowing where we're at. And she said, I am no more worried now than I was a year and a half ago. And she said, so that makes me really happy. You know, he's not in any pain, and he's doing really well. And, you know, the cough doesn't seem to be, she watched him while, because like he coughed, but it was like, and then he was done. And she goes, yeah, the cough doesn't even seem to really be bothering him. And then he like just kind of picks up and is like, you know, going again. So good report on PP. I'm very happy. He got his blood taken, and he did that really, really well, and he didn't fight her on it or anything. She brought in like a vet tech to take the blood, and he just stood there like a good little boy. I'm so proud of him. And then we went home, and I let he and Boo and Tucker just kind of wander around in the yard forever. PP just likes to be in the sunlight. He loves the sunlight so much. And I was sitting on the patio, and I was reading my magic book, and he came out there, and he came up on the patio. Boo and Tucker were already inside, and he just stood in like the little area where the sunlight was, and it was so cute. And then I made videos. I made 2 videos for my Peter Monn channel, a video for my Peterisms channel, a video for my BookTube channel, which is uploading. I was uploading while I was at my meeting, so I haven't uploaded it yet. I'm going to put it up when I get home. And my vlog. And then I was going to do a review video, but Alex was on his way home, and I just wanted him to be able to relax. So I'll do that video tomorrow, but I went and I bought something new at Container Company. And I also went to the bookstore today because I bought a couple new books for what I talk about in my book. The video will be up by the time you see this. So I was reading 2 James Patterson books a month, but I changed it, and it's now called the Supermarket Read-Along, because basically it's books that you can get at like the grocery store. So, you know, like books that like the Pulp Fiction kind of books, like, you know, John Grisham, John Kellerman, Michael Connelly, you know, James Patterson, Nora Roberts, those kind of books. Danielle Steele, Jackie Collins, those books. And it's going to be 2 books a month. And so I went and I picked 2 new books that we're going to read, but I'm behind on the James Patterson, so we're doing a book a week this month to catch up. You don't have to if you've already read them. And so I'm excited about that. And that was kind of like a new project that I'm real pumped about doing. And yeah, it was just a good day. It was just really relaxing. It was nice outside. I kind of wanted to make it to the pool, but I have my meeting. So maybe tomorrow I will go to the pool. And yeah, that was just about it. It was just a good day. I listened to my audiobook a lot while I was driving around today. I'm listening to The Pines by Blake Crouch, which was his series that he did that they turned into Wayward Pines on TV. It's really good. It's pretty similar to the show, but at the same time different enough that I don't find myself bored with it at all. And I remember the show pretty well. Like when stuff in the book coincides with stuff in the show, I mean, it's pretty similar. Like when you're, like if you read it and you didn't know it was the book that the show came from, you'd be like, I feel like I watched this TV. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that. It's pretty similar. The names are the same and stuff. So it's good. And I'm excited about reading the whole series. I think that's more of what I'm excited about because I haven't, I'm actually like halfway done with it, which is kind of interesting for me. You know, it's been taking me forever to get through books, but lately with audiobooks, I'm just kind of like going right through them. And so I'm ready to read the whole series because I only watched season 1. And I have a feeling that season 1 is based off of all 3 books. I don't know why I feel that way, but I just kind of do. Because I'm like halfway through the book and like not a whole lot has happened so far. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, I did that, and then Alex came home and fed the dogs, and we hung out and talked for a little bit, and he heated up his leftover pizza from a couple nights ago, and he was eating, and I watched Family Feud with him, and then he was watching the Kardashians, and that was a lot about screaming and yelling, so I wasn't like really watching it closely. And I was cleaning up the kitchen a little bit, and yeah, that's been about my day. It was a good day. Calm, peaceful, relaxed. It was nice. I don't have tons to do tomorrow, which is nice, to have another kind of relaxing day. And I think that's about it. Meeting was good tonight. I talked to my sponsor for a long time on the phone before the meeting earlier today, and she and I caught up and just talked about different stuff, and she was giving me some prompts to kind of think about some things, and so I've kind of been thinking about some of those things, and then she and I caught up tonight, and she and Tanya and I were just kind of laughing and joking and telling stories on the way home. It was nice. I feel so blessed, to have such a great support system in sobriety, as well as, such wonderful sober friends, I feel really, really blessed to have that. And I have for a long time, but there, were periods in my life, when I wasn't going to meetings and I wasn't really connected to anybody. And then in really early sobriety, I was pretty alone. I didn't really have a whole lot of people other than my friend that I got sober with. And I was thinking about this because I was talking about her the other day. She moved to go to grad school, and she went to grad school out west. And I feel like she had applied to grad schools before she got sober. And so I feel like she left, at the beginning of summer, which means we would have only been, going to meetings and stuff together for, 4 or 5 months. Not even, when she would have moved. And I think that's correct. And then she would come home from time to time and visit. But she stayed, once she moved, she stayed and met her husband. And then they got married, and she's been out west ever since. I actually haven't really talked to her. I haven't talked to her in a long time. I need to look her up and call her. As you get older, it's interesting, you'll have friends that you had when you were younger, whether it's high school or college or your early life, and you'll think to yourself, I need to call this person. And I was thinking about these 2 girls I was friends with in my, creative writing classes, and we were, always hanging out together before and after I got sober, because all of our classes were around each other. And I can remember, we got super close, and I have no idea what happened to them, none whatsoever. They were extremely talented. I'd love to find out that, they have books written out there, but I've never, heard their names or anything, so I don't know. I hope they were. I hope they're doing something that they were excited to do with their lives. It's weird when you don't know what happened to the people, that you were surrounded by in your youth. It's kind of strange because they're stuck in time forever, you see them kind of forever at that age. I think the other thing that's strange is that sometimes, most times with people, when it's your last time that you're going to see them, you don't know that it's the last time that you're going to see them, I think about that a lot. With my graduation from high school, I was kind of aware that a lot of those people I probably wouldn't see in my life again, or not until my reunion or whatever. But I don't know that I really got it. I don't know that I really internalized it or really understood it. Until, down the road. And then some of them I would see, when I would go out to bars and stuff in Indianapolis, over, Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, everybody'd be home from college and they'd go out. Especially, when we all turned, 21 and 22. But, after that, I got sober and I wasn't going out as much. And people kind of fade away from doing that, and then people get married, and then, now we have Facebook, so you see what people are doing. But what's kind of weird about Facebook is, if you're at my age, that Facebook came around when I was the year that Alex and I got together or something, was when people, really started getting on Facebook. So 10 or 11 years ago, it's all of a sudden you're looking these people up. It's not like you're keeping up with them a year later. It's it's been 20 years, you know what I mean? And in 20 years, they've graduated, they've moved across the country, they've got kids, they've been married, they've been divorced, they got more kids. You know what I mean? Like, some of my friends have like adult kids that I went to high school with. It's just bizarre to me. And it's kind of bizarre to me too that like the last time we talked, we were like 18 or 19. And then some of them I'll talk to again on the phone. And it's like, you know, like no time has gone by like between us talking. Like it feels like it was just yesterday. But they've had like a whole lifetime of like a marriage, a divorce, and kids. Like I have a friend of mine that's very much like this, you know, and it's like surreal to me. It's like, for me, I've been here the whole time. And I haven't, I mean, I've been like, you know, married and in relationships and things like that, but I feel there's a part of me inside that still feels very much like not a lot of time has passed. So it's strange when I see that these people have had like full lifetimes, you know. I mean, I guess I have too, but I don't know. It just kind of seems a little surreal to me. Anyway, but I'm almost home, so I'm gonna get off here now, and then I will be back a little bit later with more to vlog, and I will see you then. Bye. Hello, hello, hello. I am back. Like I said, this is not gonna be a long vlog tonight, so I'm just gonna vlog for a little bit longer, and then I want to listen to my audiobook. I went home and sat down and started doing bills, and then Sarah came over, and she brought a pizza with her for her dinner. And she sat there and ate her pizza, and then we all three of us sat around and talked, and it was fun to just kind of hang out. Yeah, it was a good time. And then Alex was getting ready to go to bed because he has to be up early in the morning. And so I was like, I'm going to come out and vlog, and then I'm going to listen to a little bit of my audiobook. And that's about my life. It was funny because, well, it wasn't funny, but it was interesting. Sarah was talking about, like, that she had been on Facebook today, you know, and she was looking at, like, different people and where they're at, and she's like, you know, it's hard not to, like, compare your life to other people that you went to high school with and stuff, and she was like, don't you think we all do it? And I said, I do. And I said, I try not to do it anymore. You know, and I was telling her, I said that when I was younger, I think I, like, really compared my life to others. You know, I would, like, especially when Alex and I got together, like, I was really, you know, happy in my life and where I was at and, you know, the things I'd accomplished. But it always felt like I was, like, 3 or 4 years behind everybody else. 5, 10 years sometimes, you know. And I think part of the thing that was hard for me was that the reason I was behind was because I had gotten sober when I was 22 and a half, right? So, whereas everybody else was like, and that did put me, you know, like, academically a year behind, a year and a half, almost a year and a half, 2 years behind. But I was already behind because I was doing so poorly in school. But, you know, then we would, like, meet friends of ours, and, you know, they'd live in $500,000 houses, or, you know, be traveling here, or, you know, drive this kind of car, or whatever. And I kind of in my head be like, what did I do wrong? You know, like, I've done all the things I was supposed to do since I got sober. And so it would always go back to this point of getting sober. And I went through a period where I really kind of beat myself up for not getting sober sooner. You know, I mean, me getting sober at 22 and a half was not my first introduction to sobriety or a 12-step program or treatment. So, throat is itching. You know, I would beat myself up, and I'd say if I'd only gotten sober when I was 17 or 20, you know, that I'd be on track with everybody else. And today I'm not really sure that those things that I wanted to be on track with are really that important to me anyway, you know? And, crazy. It's like sometimes like I'll like sit and talk to people that I know, and they'll have, you know, like I was talking to somebody about somebody we went to high school with who was kind of a screw up back in the day, to be quite frank. And like I looked him up on Facebook, and he had like a picture of his house on there, and he had like a really nice house, like 7,000 square foot house, and on a lot of land, and it was just a lot of upkeep, you know. And I thought to myself, I just cannot imagine like owning that. Like, that's a lot, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think you just kind of figure that stuff out as you go. Like, you'd figure out how to take care of it. But I was like, it wasn't even that, like, I wanted that, or I felt like I was falling short because of it, or any of that. It was like, I just really couldn't even imagine having to take care of all of that, or deal with all of that. And, you know, I was telling Sarah, I said, my high school graduation, like my 20 year, really helped me on that. Because, you know, I was going to go to this high school reunion and let them all know that they hadn't gotten me, you know, that I had turned my life into something successful, and I didn't let them keep me down. And I had a great time in my 20 year. People were so nice. People apologized to me. People I didn't even know that in high school, like, apologized to me. But, like, people were extremely interested in me later, you know, like what I was doing with my life, and just all kinds of things that they knew that I was like part of in Indianapolis and stuff. Like, I don't even know how some of them knew the things I was involved in, you know. And I walked away from that really realizing that this comparison study that we do with each other in our lives is so pointless, you know? And I really got it in, like, realistic terms, that it's so pointless to compare our lives to somebody else, because our journey is so specifically different than everybody else's. And I was telling her this tonight, you know, that where I'm supposed to be and where somebody else is supposed to be, or where somebody is and where I'm at, are two completely different. They're apples to oranges. There's no point in me comparing myself to that, you know? And then it's like my friend that said to me like 6 months ago or a year ago, whatever, we always lose by comparison, you know, which is true. Like, we always lose by comparison, because we don't compare ourselves to people that are not achieving the things that we're achieving. We always compare ourselves to people that have more or are achieving more than we are. So, by nature, to even go into that, we're not being fair to ourselves to begin with, you know? And then the other thing is that a lot of us didn't have some of the things that other people had, and some of us had more or less, you know? I mean, I think I look back on my life, and a lot of the privileges that I had, other people didn't have anywhere near that privilege, you know? And still today in my life, you know, I look at all of that, and so it's really, like, it's hard to compare ourselves to other people, because all of our circumstances are so completely different. And I just think it's not a fun game, you know, like, when we do that, it's not a fun game that we play with ourselves. Like, oh, who's doing better, who's doing worse, who's more successful, who's less successful. I mean, what's the point? Like, what do we ever gain from that? Except for maybe sometimes it motivates us to work a little harder, do a little bit more. But, you know, the times that I've done that in my life, and I really, like, I'm not going to say I never do it, but I haven't done it in quite some time. You know, like, the times I've done it in my life, I've just ended up feeling worse about myself, not better. And it didn't really motivate me a whole lot. So it's like, what's the point in doing it? You know, why am I comparing myself to somebody else's journey? Now, if I want to compare myself or their journeys side by side and say, what did they do differently from me? what is the takeaway? What can I learn? Oh, well, I had this friend who studied really, really hard in school and made academics a priority while I was off screwing around and I didn't really care. Therefore, you know, there have some more of the opportunities and things than I have. Well, then that's a different story. Then maybe I can look at that and say, okay, so what do I need in the future? Do I need to, you know, put things as a priority first if I want those things, you know? I think somewhere along the line too, like, it shifted for me. Like, and I think this is something that happens in your 30s maybe, or it happened to me in my 30s, that the things I thought I was supposed to achieve, or the things that I thought should define my life, like a certain kind of house, or the possibility of having kids, or starting a family, or, you know, having this kind of car, or this kind of income, you know, like, one of the things that is really surprising to me is that, you know, I was raised that you don't talk with people publicly about, like, religion, politics, or money. Like, I was raised, you know, that you don't sit down with your friends and just, like, throw out numbers. And one of the things that is interesting to me as I've gotten older, in the last, I don't know, like, I mean, ever since I really entered the adult, you know, world to the point where I understood that, is people will throw out money all the time. Like, it's interesting to me, you know, how much, like, how many conversations I'm having with people, and this is not the YouTube thing. I mean, not at all on the YouTube thing. Really, that's the one place people don't really do that. But I'm talking about in my real life, you know, where you'll talk to somebody and they'll say, well, I mean, we both make, we're both in the six figures. You know, you'll be out to dinner with somebody and, like, you know, somebody will say that, part of a couple will be like, well, we're both, you know, we make in the six figures, both of us. And it's like, why did I didn't need to know that information. Like, that doesn't make me look at you any different, you know, than I did before. I don't really care, except for that obviously means a lot to you. Okay. That, you know, okay, applause, bravo. Or, you know, I'll have, and this is not close friends. This is like friends, or people that I don't know real well, you know, that's even more interesting to me. Or, you know, they'll talk about getting a car and how much they spent on it, or, you know, a house that they bought and how much they spent on this house. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, just, it's necessary for people to always want to talk about incomes and all of that stuff. I just don't get it, really, you know? I had a friend of mine, you know, years ago, and he said, or I think it was him, I can, like, see the conversation in my head, but maybe it wasn't him, that was saying something to me about the fact that, like, you know, in Europe, like, one of the things he thought was interesting when he went to Europe for an extended period of time was that, like, people that he interacted with, like, the first question out of their mouth wasn't like, so what do you do for a living, right? When, you know, I think, like, in the United States, that's a leading question that we often ask people. And I even do it, too, because it's, like, often, you know, you don't know what to ask somebody. So you say, oh, well, what do you do for a living? You know, it's like, oh, I'm in insurance. And that just, like, what does that mean, you know? And I think that we define people by what their careers are, or what they do for a living. And, you know, I remember him saying to me, it, like, really has, like, I would interact with people that would talk about, you know, like, what music do you listen to? Or, you know, like, have you ever been to this restaurant? The conversations were not centered around, so what do you do? Oh, how long have you been there? Oh, well, where did you work before? Oh, really? Well, what is your degree in? Like, I feel like that's, like, a lot of conversations that I have with people. And, you know, many times I'm sitting there talking to people about it, and I'm like, I really don't care, okay? I really do not care that you are in tech law, and, I mean, I don't even know what some of these things are that people do for livings. I mean, people tell me, I'm like, you know what I mean? I think it's really about, figuring out what you want your life to look like instead of comparing yourself to somebody else. But what do you want your life to look like? And then she was saying to me, she was like, I just don't know that my life's ever going to look this way that I want it to be, And I said, I think part of that is surrender and acceptance on some level. That, accepting of, well, maybe this isn't what my life is supposed to look like. And then the surrender to that is letting go of that need and that desire to have that, And like I said, I would never tell somebody not to chase their dreams. I say that a lot, but at some point, too, you have to be kind of realistic and be like, well, maybe this isn't supposed to be, like, this isn't happening for me. Would I be better spent spending my money and my time and my energy doing something else that's close to this that I might be just as happy doing, that I could be more successful in, We weren't even really talking about a career with her, but she was just talking about some different things in general, And I was telling her about the Oprah thing, where Oprah really wanted the part in The Color Purple, and she surrendered it up, and then as soon as she did, it was like that opportunity opened for her. And I think sometimes, as a spiritual person, definitely I feel this way, that like when I let go of something and I surrender it up, is when that opportunity, I was holding on to it so tight in my head, this idea of how something should be or how something should turn out, and I was really like controlling it in my head, and I really could see no other options, that all of a sudden when I like opened this door over here to 3 more options, it's like, okay, well, this one set way that I thought it could be, all of a sudden became a very realistic option, because I was no longer focused and settled on just that one option of how my life needed to be, Like, I know that this is going to sound crazy to people, and this is really like, I read every day on my Peterisms channel. I'm like, at least 4 out of the 7 days a week, I read from the Codependent No More sister meditation book, which is called The Language of Letting Go, And there's a reason why Melody Beatty's work has resonated with me, is because I'm extremely codependent, not just on people, but on things in my life. And it's been something I've worked on for a long time. And, codependency gets a real bad rap. It's always seen as a negative, word or describing adjective for somebody, when it isn't necessarily a negative thing. And I think, like Alex and I being in marriage counseling, whenever I share these things, I only share these things because I believe that there might be one person out there that really relates to it. Not that I want it picked apart 50 different ways. Because I do think it's valid, and I do think a lot of people feel this way, and almost sometimes won't admit it. But because I felt this way in my past 2 relationships until, like, I was forced to make a decision, or that person made a decision. But, like, with Alex, when we started marriage counseling, well, the years before that, I really could not imagine my life without my husband, Like, I'm talking, even when things were horrible, like, ready to separate horrible, like, I still was like, I'll do anything. Like, I can't imagine what this would look like without my husband. In marriage counseling, when I worked on my codependency, and I became more independent, and I realized I'm going to be just fine. I won't like it, and I'm going to miss the shit out of him, and I'll be sad. But eventually, I will be okay if we went our separate ways, if we're not making each other happy anymore, and the relationship's not working. Eventually, I will be okay. Well, once I gave this idea up of this perfect utopia that I had, like, held onto for so long, and could kind of visualize a world without Alex in it, was really when our marriage started taking a turn for the better. Because then what it was that I was, like, I didn't have a need for him to be there. I was choosing for him to be there, and he was choosing for me to be there. And so then, we were working towards this choice. Whereas I think in a lot of marriages and relationships, what happens over time, you talk about this comfort level, you talk about, you know, all that kind of stuff of just becoming roommates. Well, I think to some degree you start staying together out of obligation. It's like, I don't know who we are without each other. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should stay together. You want to stay together because you're choosing to be in each other's lives because you make each other happy, right? Well, for me, I had to realize what my life was going to look like if he was no longer in it. As scary as that was. And I had to really get behind. I mean, I remember having that session with my counselor, you know, and he was like, you know, you'll be okay if you and Alex don't make it. And I can remember him saying that to me, and I was like, I mean, inside I was like saying, shut up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I will not be okay. And I'm like nodding, and he's like, you don't believe that? And I remember being like, no, I don't believe that. And he was like, well, what would it take for you to believe that? I was like, I don't know. Like, I just don't think I'll be okay. I can't imagine what my life would look like without him. So it wasn't that I got behind the idea of what my life would look like without Alex because I didn't want him in it anymore. It was like once I was able to see that world, then I was able to see that, well, we're in each other's lives because we choose to have each other in each other's lives. And that was pretty powerful, you know? To choose to have somebody there, you know? But it's hard, and it's hard to not, you know, compare your life to somebody else's. It's hard to not to want to compare your life to somebody else's and be jealous and be envious and see what they have and wish it for yourself and feel entitled to it. I think that's the hardest thing of all, you know, is when you rarely do we say it, but I think sometimes we feel it. They don't deserve it, and I do. Like, there's been many times in my life that inside I have felt that way, right? Like, why them? What did I do different? Or why is this not happening for me? Well, my lessons are different than everybody else's. My journey is different than other people. And I'm sure there have been a hell of a lot of times that something has happened to me that somebody else has sat there and said, why him? Why not me? You know, our journeys are different. And once I could see it from that point of view, that it wasn't just me looking at somebody else's life, but that there was probably points in my life where people looked at me and said, well, why does he get this? You know, then what I realized was it was just this spinning, you know, this spiritual rotation, so to speak, of whose turn next, you know? And that it's about specific journeys of our lives, the ups, the downs, the bitter, the sweet, all of it, you know? And that we can't compare our lives to somebody else. And then that takes away jealousy, envy, pride, those kinds of things, you know, because like, in which the opposite of all of that is humility. And I think that's what we really, really want to work on, you know, all of us. I don't want to wake up and feel jealous and envious of somebody else, because what that really does is it minimizes myself, and it also takes away from my own self-worth, and then it makes my motivation skewed, because my motivation is to beat somebody else instead of being my own best version of myself, you know? And I think that's hard a lot of times, you know? There were many times in my life where I didn't feel that way. But the other thing to that is that when you realize that you are your own biggest competition, okay? And that you really have nobody else to be jealous or envious of, that you're your own biggest competition. And, you know, because think about it this way, right? Like, well, I was thinking of like, you know, singers or writers, and, you know, but I guess there is a #1 New York Times bestseller, and there's always going to be a #2 or whatever. But people that are in their, like, let's just say, you know, that you have 2 authors that are writing their own best work of what they can possibly do, right? Well, if they're sitting there and they're envious and they're like, well, Sally Joe, you know, her book's been on the New York Times bestseller list for 45 weeks, and my book didn't even make it on the New York Times bestseller list. Well, why is that? You know, what do you need to do for yourself to be your own best competition? What do you need to raise the bar for yourself? Maybe it has nothing to do with Sally Joe. It's going to stop. Hold on. You know, maybe it has nothing to do with Sally Joe. Maybe it has to do with raise the bar. Like, you know, one of the things that I love is when you hear, like, I've heard this so many times from different teachers, you know, as like when they were self-help speakers and stuff, is when they talk about, like, in kindergarten class, you know, when the teacher would say, reach as high as you can reach, you know, and kids, they reach and they reach and they reach, and then the teacher's like, okay, reach higher than that if you possibly can, and then they get on their tippy toes and they reach even higher and higher and higher, and then the teacher's like, okay, go even higher, and then they, like, are jumping up in the air, right? And then she's like, can you go any higher? And they're, like, grabbing chairs. It's like, at some point you're going to reach the highest that you can reach, but between now and then, there's probably a lot of things that you haven't thought about. I know with me, you know, if I get really stuck in a rut and I'm like, okay, I'm finding myself comparing myself to other people, I'm finding myself getting bitter because it's, you know, other things are happening for other people that aren't happening for me, then maybe I need to take a look at that, and I need to look at what, first of all, what my gifts are, which is gratitude. I always have to go back to gratitude, you know, and look at what I'm thankful for in my life. And the other thing is, what am I doing to better my own life and to have these things so I'm not jealous? Because, listen, if you are somebody that is so content with where you are in life, you know, I struggled with jealousy not even too long ago, you know, not even too long ago, 2 years ago, you know, and I struggled with some real jealous feelings inside. I do not have that in me at all today. Like, I don't, but I know for a fact that that experience presented itself for me to work through. Had that experience never happened to me and I had to show myself as being an ass, you know, like, that experience it's priceless to me, because I would still be this person that was jealous and envious and, you know, always wanting what somebody else has, instead of, you know, like, have you ever met somebody that is truly content in their life? They're never comparing their lives to somebody else, okay? They're not envious or jealous of other people. They're happy for them, you know? They're happy with what they're doing because they're so into they don't even compare themselves to other people, so it doesn't really matter if there's somebody that's 100 times more successful than them, because they're so into what they're doing and happy with what they're doing that there is no comparison, right? Like, because they're like, what do you mean? Like, okay, that's what they're doing over there, but, like, have you seen what I'm doing? Like, I'm so happy with what I'm doing, you know? They don't really care. And, you know, that's who I want to be. But I want to be so just, like, turned on by creativity and passion on a daily basis when I get up that, like, I don't really see outside of that. And the thing is I've worked really, really hard to get there, but I had to work through some true feelings and emotions, you know, that really a lot of that is about feeling less than, feeling not good enough, feeling not worthy, feeling not validated. And that's all Peter stuff. Like, that's all about me. That's not about somebody else. That's not about what somebody else has or what they do or their opportunities or car they drive or house they have. It's not, none of that's about that. It's about Peter. And it's about, where does Peter's self-worth begin and end? And that's my work to do. Nobody else's. And once I've started doing that work and things started changing in me, was when I didn't have those feelings anymore, you know? And when I could be really just ecstatic and happy for friends around me. But it took some time, you know? And like I always say, I have to fall on my face. I have to make an ass out of myself to learn from it and really grow from it. And, you know, I'm glad that I have been open to learning, because it's not always fun. But I think, like, if you want the end results, you know, I always seem like in my head, it's weird, whenever I talk about, like, this ideal person, like, that I want to be, it's crazy. Like, I always think of that. Did you ever read that poem, When I Am an Old Woman, I Will Wear Purple? Did you ever read that poem? Okay. My mom had this friend of hers who had purple hair because she loved purple. She painted her house purple. I even tried to drive by one night in a vlog and find her house. She's one of the coolest women I've ever met in my entire life, you know? She doesn't compare herself to anybody else. She never has. Whatever she is doing at that moment is the thing that is the coolest thing. I mean, she's just so taken with, and she's never, like, shoving it in your face. It's always like she's baking this, or she's making a cookbook, or, you know, she's tried stand-up comedy one time. You know, I mean, she's always doing something, and she's not, like, arrogant to think that she's the best at it. She's just experiencing life, and she just loves life, and she's just really cool woman, right? And very calm and just compassionate and kind and loving, you know? Like, that's who I want to be. And I always think of her whenever I think about this, like, ideal person that I aim to be, you know, that's just calm and has this gentle laugh and is excited by life on a daily basis. Like, that's who I aim to be today, you know? All the other stuff is just like dirt on the surface that I need to work on and to get rid of. And some of it's easier to get rid of than other, you know? Or others. And I think it's constant work. And when you let go of one thing, it's like revealing another, you know? It's like, okay, well, when I got past the jealousy thing, it was then like, that opened the door to me being like, okay, well then really who am I as a friend? Like, who am I as a friend to my closest friend of 23 years and to somebody I met 6 months ago? Because there is a difference, let's just be for real, right? And like, how can I be a better friend to everybody? No matter what kind of friend they are to me, that really has no play in the game. It just doesn't. You know, because it's real easy to be like, you know, well, they weren't a good friend to me. Well, you weren't a good friend to me. Well, you weren't a good friend. Well, you weren't a good friend to me, and you did this. Well, you did this. You know, it's like, do you ever just get tired of playing that game? You know what I mean? And it's like, let me just own my shit. Can we just move on? Like, I'm just at a point where I just want to own my shit and learn to figure out who I am and how I can be the best version of myself. And just really, you know, recently I had a situation where I was able to make amends to somebody. And this was like a long ago amends, or that needed to happen long ago. And for a long time, like for pretty, like years, long time, I felt like this person also owed me an amends. Have you ever felt like that? Like, you're like, okay, I can apologize, but I really hope I get an apology too. And, you know, I had the opportunity to talk to them and have this conversation that it just went really well and better than I expected. And I don't think we're going to turn around and be, you know, best Judies again. There's been a lot that's happened, and a lot of time has gone by. But, you know, I got off the phone and I didn't even realize it at first. They never owned their part, took responsibility for anything that they had done, and they had a little bit of a part, I think, in it, you know. And I just was like, I realized I didn't even need it. Like, that wasn't even what it was about to me, you know. I just needed to own my part, and then I needed to move on and have a few laughs with them, and we did, and it was nice, you know. And that's who I am today, and I hope a year down the road I'm even better, because I can tell you that's not who I was a year ago. You know, a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have been like, I am not making this amends, and this is, we're talking about some serious sobriety time that I had at that time, you know, but I would have inside of me been like, if they're going to make an amends to me, I'll make an amends to them, but I'm not going to have this, you know what I mean, like, okay, you know what I mean? At some point, I need to just be responsible for me and not try to even the score or any of that kind of stuff. And I really think that's what it's a lot about. My self-concept has improved, you know. I don't usually use the word self-esteem. I feel like I used it earlier tonight, but I don't usually use the word self-esteem. I don't really like it, but I like self-concept. My self-concept has improved, you know, in the last couple of years. And, but it's like almost as soon as I stopped trying to convince myself that I was that damn important, you know what I mean? Like, was when things started to turn around for me. Like, you know, I don't know. Anyway, life is interesting, isn't it? Life's a trip. What a long, strange trip it's been. Anyway, I am going to turn around here and I'm going to get off here and listen to my audiobook now. So I told you it was going to be shorter. It really wasn't. I don't know how long it was. Let's see, 24, 40. Well, I don't know, almost 50 minutes. It's not too short, I guess, but short for this vlog these days. Anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing Wednesday, unless you have other plans, but don't have other plans. Make the most of it. Life is short. It is not a dress rehearsal. And if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Don't forget to look at yourself and say it in the mirror every single day, even if it's just in the car, and tell yourself that and say it many times during the day. You don't have to just say it once. And pass it on to somebody else and tell them that how much they mean to you and that you love them too. Don't be afraid of those words. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I love you. Bye. Love ya.